Dave Weekley says Florio talking trash. What do you got, Weekley?
Well, listen, first of all, let me say I have so much respect for Mike Florio. The fact that he's from our state and has accomplished so much with Pro Football Talk, and I watch his show on NBC Sports Channel religiously, but to call Randy Moss a failure is, at the very least, grossly inaccurate, and at the worst, borders on a personal attack. I mean, just look at the numbers here. Last time I checked, he's still playing pro football in his late 30s. We're talking about a guy who's probably going to end his career with over 1,000 catches. He's got 15,000 yards in receptions. He's got 156 career touchdowns. He's been to 6 Pro Bowls. And to call him inconsistent, I mean, Jerry Rice had 14 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Randy had 10. Rice caught at least 9 touchdowns in a season a dozen times. Randy did it 9 times.
What about this, Dave? What about this?
Randy or the way he operates his life, that's one thing. But to really kind of dredge this all up in a conversation that should be about the numbers and who's the best receiver of all time, I kind of see that as unfair.
What about this, though, that you cite spectacular numbers by Randy Moss, but could you argue that that's in spite of taking plays off or not always going 100% or, mailing it in at a particular time in the season, those kinds of things, meaning that if he had a Jerry Rice-type work ethic, he would have been the greatest?
Well, the one thing that's always kind of interesting about this whole argument of, quote-unquote, Randy's a terrible teammate, unquote, that never really seems to come from the guys he's been with. We talked about it yesterday on our show in Charleston on Hotline, that Bill Belichick called him the smartest offensive player he'd ever been around and the best practice player. Let me turn this around to you. What do you think Randy Moss's numbers would have been like if he had played the majority of his career with Joe Montana and Steve Young?
Yeah, I think that's the argument that you hear. I defer to you sports guys to debate that part. What my point is, and I think I'm going to write about it for tomorrow, is I love it. I mean, the pros take it for what it is, and that is it's entertaining. I mean, I think we've learned finally with the Manti Te'o and on and on and on. Don't look to these people for biblical truth. Don't look to them for life lessons. Don't look to them for anything other than the typical sports cliches. And when somebody says something out of the norm, I like it. It's entertaining on an otherwise boring week of sports.
I do too. When he said that, Hoppy, yesterday, you could almost sense that almost every media member that was on the floor scrambling for stories in New Orleans stood up and gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah, because I mean, otherwise? What's the lead? Is the lead? Boy, I know that I'm really looking forward to the game, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm trying to get tickets for my family, and I just hope I can, whatever it is.
I mean, this is the lead. Here's the lead. If it wasn't for Randy Moss yesterday, and I mean, this is a big story in West Virginia, and it's kind of a sidebar story everywhere else. But I mean, the big story from Media Day yesterday is the accusation that Ray Lewis used PEDs. I mean, I think Ray Lewis expected to go to Super Bowl Media Day yesterday for some sort of an unofficial coronation, and it turned into something a lot less than that. And I think that's going to be the big story going forward to Super Bowl 47.
But again, we'd be shocked. And I don't know what the truth is. We'd be shocked if he used some performance-enhancing drugs. We wouldn't. I mean, let's step back and look and have an honest assessment of what this really is. And many times the sports media fall into these templates. The Te'o story is a great example. It's just too good of a story to check it out, and it gets tiresome. I mean, somebody says something controversial, run with it and talk about it. That's where I am. But
yeah, well, I mean, and I think this is even going on later this week with Dr. Phil, right? I mean, we're going to press this out just a little bit more, a couple of days. But, just to bring this back to Randy, when you take a look at all the things that Randy has done in his career, I mean, you can make the argument that he should probably already have 2 Super Bowl rings. And what you've accomplished in the game, I think it'd be surprising if he didn't think he was the best.
You love Randy Moss. You love Randy Moss.
I covered Randy Moss.
You love him.
I have a huge
You have a crush on him.
emotional investment in Randy, and I love
You love him. Just say it. Say the
Well, I
words.
wouldn't say love. Love's a strong word.
You have a man crush. All right, say it. I have a man crush on Randy Moss. You say it.
I do like Randy Moss.